Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. For those keeping count, this is episode 313. And my next guest hasn't been on the show for a long, long time. I think way back in episode 92. And I want to bring on my good friend, Tony Policci. And he
Hey,
just
Rob.
got off of, of doing a summit. And so he's going to spill some beans, the summit secrets. And, not everybody likes to do a summit because I think of all the pressure of bringing speakers in, of bringing, and also the time involved, and you took it in stride, and I think that maybe, a lot of people don't do it because they don't realize that there's a lot of marketing involved. And the payout may not come right away. It may come in the back end. So, Tony, I want to thank you for being here. I know you're tired. I'm tired. It's late here in Pennsylvania. Um, but, I think that, you put this summer together very quickly and you brought on a lot of great guests and you talked about a subject that is new, the whole AI thing. But it's I think you brought it into a realm where it's mixing AI with humanity. And it was I think it was a game changer.
Well, thanks, Rob. I appreciate being here. Um, would you want me to just to go in and start telling you a little bit about
Yeah, I
the
mean,
whole, how the whole process
why'd you come
started?
up with the concept and I
Well,
know
it's
I know that a summit is just an enormous thing to do.
the concept started for me about 10 months ago, actually, when I had another a really brilliant businessman, great guy, said to me, Tony, you should be the guy that brings AI and human connection together, right? Because as a copywriter for 30 years, the the landscape has changed with AI tools out there like ChatGPT and a number of the other ones. There's I think there's like 1,000
There's
AI
a lot
tools
now.
being released, every week. It's really insane. Um, but my first thought when he said that to me was, well, I'm not an AI expert, and I don't want to be an AI expert. So 10 months from where we're at right now is when this idea first came. So fast forward through those 10 months where I finally got to the point where I launched or I was going to launch the summit was um, I was on with one of my coaches and he said to me something to the group, boy, I really wish someone would do a summit on how to use AI for business growth. And then it clicked for me. I was like, oh, yes, I can do that. I can make like that makes sense, right? And then suddenly I knew. So I think my first piece of guidance for anyone that's considering doing a summit is if you have a topic that you're really interested in and you believe that there's an audience out there that's also interested in it, then go for it, right? If you don't know what kind of a topic to go with, then um, I would start with, what are the things that interest you? You don't have to be an expert in something, but
Mhm.
if you're interested in it and you have a passion for it, then you can go out and find the experts in it, right? So what I ultimately decided to do with my summit was I was going to bring together people who were not only like really using AI in their business to grow their business, not just doing clever little things like having it write their, Facebook ads for them, but actually using AI to grow their business and bring people that really understood the power of emotional connection. Um, the the belly to belly, face to face, the stuff that you and I cut our teeth with, Rob, as marketers. Growing up, the real. communication. And that is how the concept of my summit, began. So it was a long process where I got to the point where I just decided. Now, I want to throw this disclaimer out there. One thing about me is I battle with perfectionism and procrastination. They're like sisters. And a long time ago, a great guy named Jeff Paul, that said this to me. He said, half ass is better than no ass. And I believe that's absolutely true. We can work at trying to make something so good that we never actually launch.
Mhm.
Um, but you can spend an awful lot of time trying to get the perfect idea. And for me, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't have the perfect idea, but nothing was just landing for me emotionally, right? I just couldn't get behind it. So my counsel here is don't overthink this. Um, find something that people seem to be interested in, that you're interested in, and then go out and find people that you um, love what they're talking about, and that's the place to start with a summit. So, um, and then there's lots of different formats for how to do a summit. There's a 1 day summit, there's a 2 day summit, there's 3 day summits, there's summits that go on for 7 or 8 days or even longer. There's lots of different ways to do it. So there's if anybody's interested in how to put a summit together, rather than trying to cram all that into our little conversation, you can just reach out to Rob, and he'll put you in touch with me, and we can talk about that. Because um, going into this, I had done many events for clients, right? Summits for other people, had not done one for myself. And the interesting dynamic about doing a summit for myself was I'm I'm a terrible client to myself, if that makes any sense, right? I'm great at identifying what the problems and the solutions need to be for somebody else, but when it comes to my own, stuff, it's like, what do I do with this? How do I? It's easy to get into the weeds and overanalyze things. That's just how I am. So it's important, I think, to make sure that you bring in the right help. I could not have done this summit if I didn't, get somebody to help me. And I got a great guy, and I intend to, um, like work with him ongoing and actually bring other people to him to help put on summits, because he did an amazing job building things for me and handling technical aspects and things that were just outside of my pay range. But before I keep talking, maybe there's something you might want to ask me before I just keep going, because I can tend to do that.
You know what? Why? Why? I mean, I've known you for years, decades. We've grown old together,
Yep.
you know,
Yes, we have.
and I helped you on a book, 7 years ago. So, in all this, yeah, I mean, you thought about a subject and you thought, okay, this is needed in today's day and age, in the world we're in. But why you? I mean, why do you have to be the one that presents this? I mean, like you said, you could get anybody to do this. You could get other people. But you wanted to be the one, the forefront, and giving people that information. And I think you needed to have this done. There's a lot of times where people come to me and they have this book idea, and I'm thinking, what the hell? I don't want to do it. And the more that I look at this book, I treat it as a puzzle. Okay, what if I do it this way? What if I do it this way? And I shift things around until everything makes sense. And I think that you had to do that to prove to yourself that you could do it.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And you asked the question, why did I do the summit? And the reason that I did the summit was twofold. First and foremost, my um, my business as a copywriter has shifted. AI has made changes into the way that people use copywriters. It's changed the way that copywriters actually have to work
Hmm.
nowadays. If a lot of copywriters that I know, junior copywriters, people that are new in the industry, are terrified that AI is going to replace them, and that can happen.
Hmm.
Um, what I wanted to do was I wanted to leverage, like I've got decades of marketing knowledge,
Hmm.
right? So now how do I leverage this new technology that's not going away in my business, and how do I become a valuable resource for clients, and how can I shift my the way that I do business, the way that I work going forward? That was the number one reason why I did the summit. Was I realized I need to adapt. I need to grow. I need to be able to expand. And number two, I wanted to build a list of people who are interested in this topic. And so the great thing about a summit is it does two things for you. Really, the primary goal of a summit is to create a a list. It's to build an engaged list uh, who are interested. An audience for yourself. It's an amazing list building strategy. And the other extremely valuable part of that is the relationships that you build with your experts,
Hmm.
right? Um, and it was just amazing to me. So um, I now have uh, like a whole list of people. Of course, I went to a few people that I knew and had relationships with, but I went to a list of a bunch of people I'd never even met.
Hmm.
I just went out and I researched them and I started looking up, um, you know, people that fit the topic that I wanted the summit to be about. And I'd watch videos and I listen like, oh, this person's great. Reach out to them, and some of them said yes, and some of them said no. Um, some of them didn't respond, but I've built, these great relationships with other people, and that's always been the most valuable thing in my business, and I think in yours too, Rob.
You know,
It,
you admitted that overthinking sometimes is your crutch. And I think this summit forced you to focus better, and I never saw you focused more than on this summit. I would text you, I would email you, and you're like, dude, I gotta get this, I gotta get this done. I'm so focused. And next thing I knew, the website was up, the copy was done. You already had people lined up. You were and you were smoking it. And I was like, wow, you know, Tony's on fire. And I think that sometimes we take on projects not because they're gonna be easy, but because they're gonna keep us focused.
well, yeah, I mean, sure, and definitely doing a summit requires a tremendous amount of focus and commitment. And see, here's the interesting thing. Are you familiar with the book by I think it's Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art?
No, I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, so I read it years ago, and there's a line in there where he talks about resistance. Resistance comes up whenever we, step into trying to accomplish something. And you know, once I got started on the summit, it was one thing after another, and I kept asking myself, "How am I generating this?" So, like a week into it, the planning where I'm really just starting to get things going, I throw my back out like horribly. And you know me, I work out 6 times a week. I try to take care of myself, and I threw my back out doing a splits routine, trying to like maintain my flexibility. So, now I'm suffering every single day. And then my shoulder, like 2 weeks in, just as my back is starting to feel better, it's like a rotator cuff, like I can barely lift my arm. So it's just one thing after another. And issues with my adult children who like needed to move, out of California because they just like it was one thing after another. So um, my the focus that was required and the stick to itiveness, right? Like I was not going to throw my hands up in the air and just say I quit, um, but it was maximum effort, right? It was okay, and so this the thing that I'm getting at here, and I know I'm rambling, people. I apologize. Mindset. You have to
Mhm.
get the right. You have to have your mind right. Okay, and
But,
uh,
you created a product and you saw it through every step of the way, no matter what, was thrown at you. And you have to pat yourself on the back for that because there's a lot of people that the first sign of objection, of failure, of whatever, they're gonna quit. They're gonna walk away. And they're gonna say summits don't work. And you saw it through. And you know, maybe it didn't turn out the way you wanted. Maybe it didn't make as much money as you thought. But you know what? You have a product you can be proud of, and you gave it maximum effort.
yeah, the summit actually was. It, so I had expectations about the summit that were not realized, and now you know on the other side of that, and the having been able to look back and examine, I realized the summit turned out exactly how it needed to,
Mhm,
um, and I see where I made decisions that generated that. A lot of the times we want to I don't know about we, but I think the tendency for me and people in general is to blame and play the victim and this and that. And the fact of the matter is, like, I like to look at things as if I generated them all. Like whatever the results are in my life, I generated those. And you might think, well, that doesn't make any sense. If somebody attacks you or somebody hits your car, how did you generate that? Like, well, there are exceptions, but if I look at it from the standpoint that I generated it, then I can't be a victim,
mhm,
right? I have to take ownership of my life and the results that I have. And that puts me in a whole different mindset. So looking back, you said, did I some of it may not have turned out the way that I wanted, or I didn't make the kind of money that I wanted. And it was because of decisions that I made along the way, right? And they weren't quote unquote bad decisions, right? Expecting that people will do what you ask them to is
mhm,
not a bad expectation, right? Um, a leadership position is to follow up and give them assisted accountability to make sure that they have what they need and they are doing what they said they would,
mhm,
rather than just leaving it up to chance. So um, the ultimately the decision for or the responsibility for a summit or anything that we do, the success of that, it rests on my shoulders, right?
mhm,
So now I know going into this what to do differently to improve my success,
mhm,
right? Everybody that attended the summit, like my feedback is everybody loved it. Okay.
mhm,
So from the standpoint of it being successful, I've got speakers that are happy, I've got attendees that are happy. Um, and the people that bought the VIP upgrade, everybody's happy. So my affiliates are happy, but I wasn't happy because I had these expectations that were way over here, right?
mhm,
If I look back at the results of the summit, it was a tremendous success
mhm,
because I met some great people. I've got happy attendees. Lives have been impacted, and I've learned some extremely valuable lessons about how to improve going forward.
mhm.
So my mindset has been adjusted now a few weeks, post event, and for what that's worth, You said earlier, pat yourself on the back, and it's true. I've uh, traditionally had a very hard time giving myself credit for anything. Really hard time even taking compliments, right? Um, so when I look at the fact that what I accomplished and how many people set out to never do this, um, you know, it's a huge win,
Mhm.
and
And
I
I
think
think we have to celebrate our wins. Whether we made $1, whether we made $1,000,000, celebrate that win. Whether you know maybe your expectations were too high. And one of the things that I try to do, especially, and I use Disney World as an example. A lot of times people go to Disney World with these high expectations. They're going to ride every ride, which is impossible to do. They're just going to zip through the park and do everything that they want to do on their lists. When you lower your expectations and you realize that, okay, I can't do all these rides. So let's pick a few. Let's do this, this, and this. You're going to end up finding that you're more enjoyable. You're having a more enjoyable time. You're not rushing around. You're getting the stuff done that you want to get done, and you leave happy. Same with going into this summit. You know, you had this expectation that you know needed to be lowered. So the next time you do this, okay, this is what has to happen, but I don't have to get stressed out about it. These are the things I have to do for the speakers. This is, the push I need to get them to help. Um, and that way it's not everything is on your shoulders to do.
yeah, you know what they say, an expectation is a resentment, is like a a resentment in the future. And here's the thing about expectations when it comes to something like this. In order to project expectations, I have to reverse engineer the actions and the decisions that are required to achieve those expectations. And so, well, from a standpoint of just logistically, my expectations weren't unrealistic. What was unrealistic was that I could operate the way that I did and achieve those expectations, right? So there's an awful lot of truth to what you said about sometimes you have to lower your expectations, and there's also like uh, this approach which is if I want to achieve X result, what are the steps that I need to do in order to make that happen, right? So we can look at marketing statistics, we can look at percentages, conversions, all kinds of things like that, and reverse engineer our way to the numbers that we want. For me, uh, well, I have um, a group of people that their businesses, their lives are positively impacted, and they're going to be changed going forward from the information that I gave them. And my hope is that going forward, I'll build relationships with the people that attended this event, and they'll come to other events, and I'll continue to be able to add value to their life. Really, we talk about making money, and money is the result of creating value.
Hmm.
That's really it, right? If I can't create value in your life, then I don't deserve to be paid.
Well, even
So
if you like we were talking about, even if you don't make money on the initial sale or the initial, hey, you're bringing them into the summit, you're providing them education, you've got their name, you've put them on a list, you can market to them later, and whether it takes today or next week or 52 weeks from now, you continuously market to them, and you know they could surprise you and say, Tony, I want to hire you. Here's $1,000,000. Coach me. And so sometimes we don't know the exact amount of money that we're going to make. And I like how a lot of times lawyers use this past performance doesn't equal future results. So when
mhm.
you think about that, you say, well, okay, it doesn't equal future results. But if I continuously market to these people, I can at least determine based on experience that I can generate some money from them in the future. So, the results that you get right away may not be what you want, but if you take some simple action over a course of time, you're going to generate money from them. And again, it's all value creation.
Right. Absolutely. And the if I want to say this though, if you're going into something like a summit and the only goal is to make money, then I would caution you about your real motives because, you know, one of the things that almost every speaker said to me when we completed our interview was how much it was something complimentary about my character, about my authenticity, about how much I cared. And that really kind of blew me away because it was true. I did care, but I didn't realize that it was coming across. Um, and like I really wanted the summit to be excellent. I wanted people who showed up to get tremendous value out of what I was bringing them. And uh, again, that just goes back to if I add value to your life, then a transactional exchange, eventually will happen. And not all value is rewarded monetarily, right?
Mhm.
Not all wealth comes from the exchange of dollars. The wealth of relationships, friendship, um, you know, that's the kind of connections that you make with other people. There's so much that can come out of doing something like a summit. And, fundamentally, think about the relationships and the reputation and the credibility that can be established from doing that. So,
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it's the stick to it, stick to it.
it's tough
You
to
got
say. Stick to itiveness. Yeah,
there you
stick
go.
to itiveness.
There's words that I just this doesn't flow out, but you kept a positive uh, mental attitude through the whole thing. And like I said, there's a lot of people who would get frustrated, would get probably down and out, and they realize that maybe this whole summit thing is not for them. And but you were like the train conductor. You kept everything moving the way it was supposed to, and you kept your wits about you. Even if you're going through heck, with your back and your shoulder, and I was, to be honest, I was impressed. I was honored. I was proud of what you put together because
Thank you.
you know, you know, I know from going back from previous episodes that you were on the e-heroes, being an ADD entrepreneur, it's tough to focus. But you kept everything together. And
Yeah, it was,
I think that if anybody wants to do a summit, they got to contact you. You can go through step by step by step what it's going to take for them to do it, and you can be their conductor because you took it all in stride.
yeah, it's funny that you say that because I had some coaching and a roadmap to of what to do to get me through the summit, and like not everything I needed to know was in that roadmap and in that coaching, right? So I've learned, like, I know on the other side of this all of the steps. Like, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to position yourself. Here's how you approach speakers. This is, I mean, it's like I've learned by going through it.
Mhm.
even though I had, kind of a path and a plan to get me there. So,
But, it's
yeah,
not just getting there, but it's the after effect, the constant communication after your summit, What's the marketing afterwards? I think a lot of people just stop at the summit. They stop at that, "Okay, well, we didn't sell anything. Let's go on to the next thing." You've got this list. What's the plan now to market to these people? Once a week, once a month? I mean, it's that's gotta be part of that entire plan.
sure. I mean, you said that, and I've talked to people that have done summits and they didn't sell anything,
Mhm,
meaning no one upgraded to the VIP, no one took any kind of offer that they made on the back end. And, I think, well, that's not entirely true. If you had people register, then you sold them
mhm,
on the summit. The idea of learning was appealing to them. So take a look at that. Uh, you know, this is just like everything is marketing, right?
mhm,
Um, if if I put an offer out there and people raise their hand and they say, "Yeah, I'm interested in that," that's great. But if they don't take any action, okay, if I'm interested but I don't sign up, if I'm interested and I don't show up, if I'm interested but I don't pay up, then I'm not really interested. At least I'm not interested enough. So if people have a summit and people actually register and show up for it, then they sold them on this concept, on this idea, on this education, and there's value there. So um, how can I put this? It's so easy to look at um, what didn't go the way you wanted,
mhm,
rather than take a look at, okay, what did we actually accomplish here, and what can we do next?
mhm,
And that's really where the value is. Uh, if I gave anybody any marketing advice, the thing that I would tell them nowadays is fail as fast as you can, right? Create iteration after iteration after iteration. And like this really isn't revelation knowledge, but I think I see like the younger generation, like if they don't win out of the gate with something, it's like,
yeah,
oh well, I tried and I failed.
right,
Like, good lord, man. Uh think of some of the
yeah,
classic examples like Disney you brought up
mhm,
just a few minutes ago. I mean, does anybody know the story of what Walt Disney went through to build this, empire in the swamp,
yeah,
and how many people laughed him out of their rooms when he went for financing? Right? We all know the story about the light bulb and how many attempts were made by Edison for the light bulb. Was it Edison for the light bulb?
mhm,
I think it was. Uh, we know that story, but there's so many others that we like. Colonel Sanders, my God, he didn't even start until he was in the 60s. And like people laughed at him with this recipe. So eh, if you want to be an entrepreneur or a business person and you are not willing to experience some quote unquote failure, then get a job and just, go make money for somebody else.
yeah,
Because there's really no failure is very rare. All right. For me, it is either you succeed or you learn.
mhm,
Now, those learning lessons aren't always comfortable and they're quite often disappointing, but it's really about perspective.
mhm, yeah. So how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go? I know they can find you on Facebook.
The easiest way for folks to get a hold of me right now is just go to tonyscard.com. That has all my information on it. And I would love for you to go check out my free book page. You can go get a copy of my award-winning copywriting book. that Rob, in his infinite wisdom and courage and talent and persistence, helped me take from an
Yeah,
ebook to a
it
revised.
is one hell of a copywriting book too, and I encourage everybody to buy it. It's on Amazon. You can get it anywhere. I mean, we had a friend in Norway buy your book, and to me, that is the ultimate compliment when somebody in a foreign country, buys your book or buy my book or whoever, because the thing is our messages now are traveling beyond our own country.
Right.
Other people want to hear about us. They want to know. They want to learn. And you know, in a couple episodes back, I interviewed Bon Halbert, who's the son of Gary Halbert. And as I was preparing for that interview, I picked up Tony's book and I'm paging through it. And a lot of the things that Bond ended up talking about were in Tony's book that we mentioned. And it was like, oh, I could have just told him to buy Tony's book.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can get the book if you go to grabtonysbook.com. Really easy to remember. Grabtonysbook.com. You can get it just for shipping and handling, or you can go on Amazon and pay retail for it. But
Yeah.
the great thing about my book is I wrote it for anyone. I didn't write it just for copywriters. It'll make you a better communicator. It'll make you a better writer, especially if you're using AI.
Mhm.
It has all of the foundational things that you need to know to make sure that what you're putting into your whatever tool you use gives you back content that's useful. And there's resources in the back of the book that I still use myself. It's really kind of weird when I pick up my own book and I look in the appendix for like resources, words, catchphrases, headlines, things like that. But it's very valuable. So thanks, Rob.
And can they if they're listening to this and they want to learn about the summit that you put on, is there a way for them to get copies of that?
Right now, if you go to aibusinessgrowthsummit.com, that's aibusinessgrowthsummit.com. There is currently, as we're recording this, I've got a waiting list up for the next summit, and if you're interested in being a part of that, or maybe even getting the recordings from the most recent one that I did, you can go there and just throw in your name and email, and I'll get in touch with you.
And for all those out there, I'm going to throw this out because I believe that not only Tony needs to get paid for what he does, but he needs to get paid to coach you on how to put on a awesome summit. Now, I don't know what Tony charges for this, but I want you to contact him and I want you to inquire and I want you to make your next summit phenomenal. So get with Tony. Go to what? Tony'sCard.com. Is that what it was?
Yes,
And, or go to a summit that he mentioned, the AI, was it AI?
AI Business Growth Summit.
Yeah.
AI Business Growth. Yeah,
And grab his content because you're going to learn some massive stuff. Tony doesn't do half-ass stuff. And, and grab his book because, the essence of copywriting is something that you're going to need because if you're going to be utilizing AI, you need to one know that AI is going to spit out the right stuff, but you have to know that okay, this is the headline, this is the grabber, this is the subheadline. All these things, these secrets, you need to know that the AI is doing it the right way if you're going to utilize it that way. So, thank you, Tony, and
absolutely.
we'll see everybody on next episode. Adios.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you.